Now, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time, but I'm sorry, this is a necessarily time-wasting part. These enemies coming out of everywhere are called moles, and you may recall seeing them very briefly in Metal Man stage, but I used the time stopper to run past them without them coming out of every which way. And I'm sorry, this is just gonna be a little bit slow and boring. In my opinion, they take a little bit too long to kill, and there's scads of them. However, they're great for power-ups, because if you've got the patience, you can stand here long enough to stock up on everything, but eventually, if you're anything like me, you're probably gonna get a little bit reckless, a little bit careless, and just want to plow through them to get to the other side. So, I'm sorry, but this is probably going to be the most boring part of the video, the least attractive part of this run, if you don't count the sound of my voice for now. Now, as for the rest of this stage, it does start to pick up a little bit, but this is one of those sort of low-key stages. There's not a whole lot to it. This section here is probably the most difficult. And I'm pulling out the wall walker once again. It's not going to have much more airtime, and it's going to basically disappear entirely from the Mega Man games, so I'll use my little buddy while I still can. Here's a very, very tricky spot. If you've got Flash Stopper, you might want to use it. If you can carefully space yourself there, go for it. I prefer to save Time Stopper for the inevitable battle with Quick Man. Dropping down here, some more vertical portions, and these spikes are really harmless. Don't worry about the energy unless you absolutely need it. And here is a fun, interesting boss. I don't know about fun, but certainly interesting. The walls come to life and attack you. And they start out slow and gradually get a little bit faster every time, until if you let them go, it's very hard to keep track of them and they'll just keep colliding with you. They do a hefty amount of damage when they collide. But the Metal Blade takes them out because, again, sometimes it makes sense what enemies are weak to what weapons, such as Heat Man being vulnerable to Bubble Man's weapon, water weapon. I always get hit that time, always. But some enemies, like this one, it's best to figure out what weapon's useful against them based on their attack pattern, and what weapon would be most suitable to hitting them. So hooray, another one dead. In case you were wondering, this is the exact same castle music they used in Mega Man 9. I felt so gypped they didn't come up with anything new. Okay, by this point you should probably have full weapons energy on just about everything if you fought the moles long enough. Now watch carefully on this next screen, I'll be out of it quickly. Whee! Hopefully you noticed that there were not one, but two double sets of walls that can be blown up with the Crash Bomber. Don't waste your energy on them. Even if one of them is an E-Tank, you're going to need all of the weapons energy that you can possibly save for Crash Bomber for the boss fight at the end of the next level. And it's probably going to take too much energy to fight enemies for power-ups there. Yep, that is a giant fish, and I killed it with a boomerang. That's how we do things in my town. And it's funny because that fish, if I'm not mistaken, is only able to be destroyed with a quick boomerang. But you can just jump over them, so why bother? I don't know. This big long drop with spikes on the wall, something you'll see again in Mega Man games. Press start if you need to slow your descent. You can, it is possible to go in there way too fast for comfort. So yes, if you press start, you'll slow your descent very briefly, and you can keep hitting it over and over again to almost float to the bottom. Here I've got Bubble Lead, and it's not necessarily the best weapon to use, but I felt like using it, therefore I used it. Plain and simple. This section here, and then the section leading up to the boss in the next stage, it's almost as if they want you to get hit. It's not like, here's a challenge, overcome it. It's, here's a bunch of damage that you can't really avoid. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. It's not bad. It's just, I don't know, a little bit too unfair. Here's Gutsman again. He is a giant tank. That seems to be what we do with old Robot Masters, and he's destroyed even faster than Gutsman before. If you let him go long enough, sometimes he'll shoot hard hats out of his chest cavity. I'm sure that's got awful indigestion there, but whatever. However Dr. Wily sees fit to design his bosses, well, that's fine with me. I'll take him down all the same. Okay, so it's this stage, and then the next stage, and I think that's the end of the game, right? Well, we'll see. And look, power-ups have been scattered around here once again. I swear it's that turncoat sympathizer robot friend of mine working for me instead of for Dr. Wily. I think I'll call him Benedict Android. Yeah, I like that. What I don't like, however, is this stage. Oh no, it's not an awful stage. There are far worse stages in Mega Man games. But, well, after you've figured out the tricks to it, it becomes a little bit dull. And this is probably my least favorite stage in all of Mega Man 2. So here's the trouble with it. It's a puzzle stage. Now, I love puzzle stages, but there's a hole in the floor. Once again, there's a hole in the floor. But after you figure that out, there's not much of a trick to it. You see, puzzle games I happen to fancy, and they challenge your mind, which is something that platformers don't often do. And the fact that there are puzzle elements in Mega Man 2 makes it pretty appealing, in my mind. Unfortunately, the more you play Mega Man 2, the more you get a feel for exactly where the platforms are like that you can fall right through. And it just sort of loses its challenge and its charm. Now, here's a great spot where you know that there's going to be a hole in the floor somewhere, so you use bubble lead to trace out the path, and wherever it drops, oh, that's where the hole is. You can actually do this in a couple of Mega Man games. They're sort of similar concepts. And, of course, here as well, to get to the energy tank, you're going to need to fall down a couple of holes, invisible holes in the floor, or visible, not visible holes. The platforms that aren't quite solid, but I'm maxed out on E-tanks, so I don't really need them. Ah, yes. These again, these line-guided platforms that we warmed up on in Crashman's stage. Well, they're back again, and now that everybody's been acclimated to the idea of these line-guided platforms, they've taken off the training wheels and replaced them with deadly spikes! Way to go, guys! I find that Woodman's weapon is probably the safest bet to use here. You can just activate your shield and stand around and wait a while as things stupidly crash into you. Oh well. Yeah, this is a nice stage the first or second time you play it, when there's still some surprise to it, when there's still an element of trying to figure out, well, how do I get past these floors that aren't quite solid? How do I get through this endless stream of enemies that I can't quite shoot? Do I waste my metal blade energy on it? Do I hit them with air shooter? What do I do? After you've figured out the basics of how to get through this stage, it's not much of a puzzle anymore. It's just sort of an exercise in patience, in standing around with your leaf shield there, waiting for the next thing to happen. I suppose you can activate item 2 at the top of that ladder, or the bottom of that ladder at the top, and jet over to the left side, jump down and fall. I mean, I've never tried it. Maybe next time. But, I don't know, I feel like after you've figured out what you're supposed to do here, there's just too much waiting. It feels so long, and that's why it's my least favorite stage in Mega Man 2. Yeah, the jet sled there makes it a lot quicker to get past, otherwise you need to wait for the platform to come back around and make a very dangerous jump. And I had alluded to the fact that sometimes air shooter's a little bit glitchy. Well, if you watch here while I shoot this guy, he kind of turns white for a while as the tornadoes go through him. I don't know, it doesn't always do full damage when you hit an enemy with it, depending on the angle. And I'm charging up here to shoot that Sniper Joe, who, unless you can kill him on the first hit before he gets off a shot, will hit you. And even if you run out of the tunnel, when you run back in, he is just outside of any reach of a weapon that you can really hit him with. So it's not like you can sort of snipe and stand outside as you're dodging his shots. It's almost like you have to get hit, sort of like what I was saying in one of those other stages. Now this boss right here is, more than anything else that I've stated, the biggest reason why this stage is my least favorite in Mega Man 2. Now, it's a great idea. It's a puzzle boss. You need to use your special items like 1, 2, and 3 to maneuver around this room, and then you need to destroy all of these domes on the wall with Crash Bomber. And what's tricky is that you have exactly enough Crash Bomber energy to take out the domes and the wall on the left and the wall on the bottom right. If you miss a shot, or if you shoot out the wrong wall, you will not have enough energy to destroy everything, because they're invulnerable to all of the rest of your weapons. So at that point you need to just die and then start over again. What's a problem with this is, fortunately it's getting better now, but the sprite flicker is absolutely atrocious, totally unprofessional, and just, you can't tell what's going on. And these enemies flash when they're about to shoot at you, and there's no way to dodge them when everything's flashing on the screen. And if you die, then you need to go get all of your Crash Bomber energy back from fighting the Sniper Joes and Walkers outside, which takes forever, and they hurt you a lot. Not cool. Fortunately, the walls you destroy stay destroyed when you come back, so puzzle boss, yay, annoying, boo.